Flex Lewis here, straight out of the lab. What's up, guys? Episode 11, straight out the lab. It gives me great honor to have not only my dear friends, family, but also my partners in Arsenal Strength joining us today. Jamie, Andrew Hall, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
We're happy to be here.
Welcome to the casting couch.
Thank you.
This is where we're starting. Right? But honestly, guys, what a story we all have, right? You know, we go back many years, all of us actually, even with Doug, back to the Tennessee days. And for all the viewers out there, you know, Arsenal Strength is one of the fastest growing companies in the United States. I would say the most dominating, you know, in the sports industry.
That's right.
Yes.
And again, listen, these are not obviously fabricated statements. These are true. And this is one of the reasons why, you know, I'm so proud to be a part of this. Obviously, from day one, you know, we've all seen this company grow. It's a baby to us all. And where we are today, man, did you guys envision to see these pieces being trained on by the world's best, the greatest athletes training on pieces that we, you know, thought of.
That's right.
And now created, and again, round the world.
You start?
Go for it.
Yeah,
So, I mean, to say we envision, yes, like I knew this could happen. We had a lot of people saying, it's, you know, this is not going to happen, naysaying, but I knew it could happen. I didn't know it was going to happen at the pace that it's happened. That's been the coolest part to watch from when we started, and the path that we've taken was not anticipated. But yeah, so it's very, very cool to see.
It's almost surreal because you know, even walking in here, the Dragon's Lair, it's like, oh shit, like we made that, you know, and it's just, you don't really stop and think about those things often. But when you do, it's almost overwhelming, and it's a really cool feeling to have, for sure.
And it's an incredible story, you know. Again, I want the viewers to really know where they started off. Again, Andrew, I don't know if you want to tell your story, and I'll add in here, but
For sure.
Take it away. Murfreesboro, Tennessee.
So back in Murfreesboro, when this thing really kind of first started, as far as the conversations between yourself and myself.
Shout out Murfreesboro.
Shout out to Murfreesboro. It was really kind of the athletes and the bodybuilders getting these things, you know, created. Because what was on the market right now is there's pieces that have been out for 30 years that have never had change. And we saw an opportunity to really kind of take the bull by the horns and really do something different.
And we were training together, just to throw that in at the point.
That's
in time
right.
too.
So, you know, fast forward to 2014. I want to say this is maybe in the summer of 14. There was just, you know, being in the industry, I worked for another company at the time, and I just saw a gap in the industry that it was not a priority. It was underserved, and it's just an afterthought. And I came to Jamie and I said, I want to start a company. Mind you,
I
at
was
the
like,
time,
you're crazy.
yeah, I mean, there was not many people. You know, you were one of the few that were like, you should do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Most of the people, to be honest, were like, oh, you know, it's not a good idea. And the other part about it was we had a 6-month-old daughter. Yes. You know, we literally just, you know, bought our first house, starting a family, and then all of a sudden it's like, you know, Jamie had a great job working for, you know, a grown-up job. I'm, you know, so that was part of it. We literally sold the house, put everything we had into the business to fulfill this dream and really kind of go from there.
I think that's the best part of the story, to be honest. So many people want to start a business, but so few people are willing to put it all on the line, right? And you guys
100%.
literally did that. I think that's so cool.
We did. I mean, we were talking earlier. It's literally a sink or swim. Some people, you know, I think they perform and can. That's the environment they have to move forward. There was no, in my mind personally, there was no option of failing. It was just not. I also knew enough about the industry and the markets that if I knew that this thing was going to take off, again, not at the pace it did, but I knew we were onto something.
So, sorry, Jamie.
No, I was just thinking, like, I remember when we were actually laying in bed and he's like, I want to do this. And I was just, we think very differently, right? We function very differently. And so I'm running like calculations in my head. I'm analyzing the situation, and I'm like, how are we going to do this? And he's like, well, we'll just make it. We'll make it work. And I believed in him that much. And I'm not a risk taker, but I was like, okay, we'll figure this out somewhere or another. And that's like what he said. We're like, well, here's what we need to do. We need to come up with some kind of cash. And we were young, just starting out. Like, we had some money saved, but very minimal at that point. A new baby, and we had a little bit of equity in our house. We bought a foreclosure at that point in time, so we sold it. And the plan was to live off the money we made for at least 2 years. So we didn't have any other cash coming in. We could live very, not well, but we could scarf and get some food in, and for 2 years, and that was what we planned to do.
I remember that conversation we had clearly to this day. It's a story I love to tell. We were training. I don't know what body part we were training, but I remember there was a lot of frustration. I'm not going to throw any names under the bus, but there was a lot of frustration with a particular company you were working with. And I'll say it as your friend, you were very underappreciated, but very well loved by many customers all around the United States.
Right.
So when you came to me and said, Flex, I love this space I'm working in. I don't know if over some weeks you might have said to me, I don't know if I can stay what I'm doing, but somewhere along that line, you kind of planted the seed about potentially doing something on your own. And, I'm kind of a good wingman, a good hype guy, but I'm also a realist too, But Andrew, I knew the skills you possessed and how you are as a person, but as loved as you were within the industry. Again, we all in this room have our foot in the door with the world we're in. And I heard from many a customer how great you were, because obviously we were training together. What a great guy, If it wasn't for him, I wouldn't have got this and that. He explained this to me, and I was like, Andrew, you need to start your own company. And he said, yeah, it's something I've been thinking about. And obviously, we all know cash wasn't there. There was a lot of risk.
Yeah.
And I think somewhere along the lines, that seed was planted. We kind of watered it every time we trained.
Right.
And then I went away. I went away on tour with Gaspari.
Yeah, you were gone for a while.
And I came back, and we trained for the first time, and Andrew said, Flex, I'm all in. I go, what do you mean? Wait, what did I miss you? I'm going to do it. I'm starting it up. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it on my own. I was like, well, listen, Andrew, whatever you're doing, I want to be part of it. I want to help in any way I can. And, man, it was a very surreal conversation. I think I was scared for you. And because we had that conversation, I wanted to make sure that I helped in any way I could to get this off the ground. And I think that is a story that a lot of people don't know, around the world. Maybe there's a lot of people that friends of ours don't know that this initial conversation started in a gym in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, and now has become what it is globally around the world. I preach a lot about dreaming big, and nurturing ideas. And again, this is the success story that's come from that. There was a massive risk that was taken. Yeah. Obviously, Liv was 6 months at that point in time. You guys didn't have that money. You were newlywed. You were kind of, not only were you going to start this massive business with a massive risk in a pool that already had massive brands, that the names are the names that are still existing to this day. Right. So when I look at that and I go, holy shit, it's such a bigger risk now looking back than it was then. But I truly believed it was going to become something, and it's far surpassed what I ever could have imagined.
So your expectations were they've been exceeded as well from what you thought. I mean,
you guys know, look, you see the people I have around me and the things that my friends have achieved, all the people I have that all dream big. They all go all cards in. That's Vegas, right? Yeah. But we all have, again, a reality to everything. But obviously I wanted this to be big. But when we got to that level, that bar gets lifted up and lifted up and lifted up. Again, it goes to the story I've said many times about coming to the US. I wanted to be on the Olympia stage, and then, I've got all these trophies next to me, you know. But when you're in that kind of 40 focus lane and your blinkers are on, you're only driving full force and nothing else. And that bar keeps on getting raised. But again, I want to take it back to the story again. You guys have invested all cards in. You put every single dime into this.
Right.
Continue.
How old were you guys, by the way?
Go on.
Sorry.
How old?
Yeah, at the time that it started. I'm just curious.
2014. I'll be 40 in 2 weeks.
Okay.
So I was in around early 30s.
Yeah, I was late 20s.
Yeah.
And follow up to that, and I'm curious for a reason, if you had to do that exact same thing again now, right, with a more established family, more kids, a lot more on the line, you probably couldn't do it again, right? Like, it would be a lot harder to make that leap of faith now.
Yeah.
Right?
That's
I think
very
honestly
accurate.
the timing was impeccable in some ways. I think for a lot of different aspects within the industry, within some things that we leveraged with social media, I think our timing was good where we were as a family, young, flexible. Sure. Even though it's very terrifying thinking about starting that with a 6-month-old. I know some moms, that are listening can relate to that. But I think it would be much harder to do something today.
Yeah.
Like that.
I was just curious
That's
because I kind of can understand that. Like, I think back to my 20s and I took a lot of, huge risks that thinking back, I'm like, that was fucking crazy.
Yeah,
like, what was I thinking? But I don't think I had fear then.
Yeah.
Because the impact wouldn't have been as significant.
Yeah.
Right? If it all went to shit, it's like, all right, well, I'll recover. Right now it's like it's different. You can't take those same risks. That's why I was curious. Sorry.
For sure.
Well, and to that point, Doug, I think even now, like, I feel more pressure as we've expanded our family. Now there's 3 kids. We've expanded the company. Like, there's more pressure almost to the point where it's the same concept. Like, I can't let this fail. There's too many families counting. I mean, we have over about 200 employees now. Like, that's 200 families and ours, y'all. Like, everybody's counting on this to go and get bigger and succeed. So the pressure it's there.
My partner and I talk about that pressure a lot because I think some people don't think about that aspect. But when you have families, it's not young people, right? It's not like teenagers who are doing something, but you have families that rely on you guys. So every decision that you make has an impact on them, not only yourselves. And then obviously as owners, you eat last, right?
That's correct.
In a good business anyways.
Yeah.
And I know that's how you guys are. Yeah. So I know that's hard.
It is hard.
I wanted to ask the question though, and it goes back to your story of obviously you had this conversation, you had this idea, it was planted, it was watered. You, Jamie, were working at a different job. At what point were you like, okay, I'm going to quit this job, I'm going to go all in, and correct me if I'm wrong, you've never worked with your husband before, right?
Yeah.
So that's a whole different ball game that I think a lot of people never get to experience. Then there are some that kind of get to experience it. Obviously in a relationship, you have to work together no matter what, right? You have a household, you have family, but then to truly work together, to be in the same room, on the same calls, or, you can't come home from work and complain about your coworker because your coworker's your husband, right? To your husband. I've been there. So you can. It doesn't really work that well.
Still work around. What are you talking about?
But I think that's a whole thing in it itself that makes something very successful is the teamwork that goes on and how you knew you could work together. And I know people, like you just said, they look at the end like, oh, you're doing so well, it must be so easy. It's like, no, it's not easy. Right. You've had to figure out how to work together, right? Or that your strengths and weaknesses. And we get asked this a lot. People just see like how far you've come, but they're not, reading the chapters of like, oh, on this day we didn't eat, or on this day we didn't speak, and this week, So my real question is kind of just figuring out, how did you know that you'd be able to work well together? How did you fix or overcome, differences so that you can work better together to grow the company? And you made this big decision of like leaving a job you were enjoying, I'm assuming at the time, or, at least doing well with, and entering into the unknown. How did you, was just a no-brainer, or was it?
Honestly, well, a couple of things. So I worked for a Fortune 200 company. I had a very good job. I was doing really well. I was excited about my career path.
Yeah.
And I was promised a lot of things. And I think I learned at a young age, like, that sometimes doesn't happen, right? So there's some frustration there. So leaving that company was difficult financially for us to make that decision, because it was, it was a good paying job. But I think from my goals and aspirations, that was an easy decision.
Yeah.
I think back to kind of what Doug said, the timing, like, we were relatively newly married. I thought everything was perfect. I didn't understand that there was this concept of, like, that honeymoon stage ends and then real life begins. So I'm like, Andrew's a fantastic husband, but I was like, oh, it'll be perfect. None of those things that you just asked me even came into play, because I'm like, oh, it'll be just fine.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't until we actually started trying to, like, figure this out together that I was like, oh, we are actually complete opposites on how we function. But to how we did things, it worked out. And so we didn't really know what we were getting into. I think it was complete, just blissfully unaware.
Would you say ignorance is bliss, because you were kind of still...
It was complete ignorance.
Yeah.
And once we
a
figured...
passion wrapped around it.
Yeah, it was like, we're just gonna figure this out. And then we learned our strengths very quickly. And, obviously our daily job is very different.
Yeah.
Andrew's very much the visionary. I don't have a vision, and he has the grand plan. And it's really where I've had to work, is trusting him and then trying to be on his same level, because he operates at one pace and it's fast forward, and nothing in life happens quickly. And so I'm in the back, like, trying to make sure we got staff and everything and legal and,
Yeah. Excuse me. So at one point, we literally in the office had an East Coast, West Coast kind of a gang war thing, because there's just certain topics that we would butt heads on.
Yeah.
One being legal. I'm more like Old Testament, Wild Wild West. That's how problems should get fixed. She's the opposite.
Yeah.
So there's certain topics and things that we just kind of separated. So we literally had this kind of Crips blood thing going, where we knew that it would work best, and that was But I think with anything, if you really think about it, kind of tying this all back, communication, and from a personal relationships and business is so important, and that's one thing that we can always improve.
Yeah.
As husband and wife, as business partners, etc. But overall, we communicate very clear and often, and I think that's really helped kind of guide us and get us to where we're at currently.
I'll say this too, just having known you guys for a long time, and this is pertaining to the business, but outside of the business as well. My honest opinion is, I think one of the keys to your success that you would probably never say about yourself, I wouldn't think you would, knowing how humble you both are. I think you're two of the best people I know, and that's the God's honest truth. I think you guys are incredible people with incredible character and moral fiber. And I think that it's because of that. You do what you say you're going to do, and people trust you. And I really, truly believe in business that is a differentiator, right?
Absolutely.
Especially after the pandemic.
Yeah.
It's become commonplace almost to just say whatever you got to say, and just later, like, fuck them. Get the money and then worry about it later. And I think you guys have always kind of stood from the beginning on the foundation that we are who we say we are. If we're not right, we're going to say we're not right. If we're not the right fit, I've seen it firsthand. Yeah. And I have to commend you both for that, because I think a lot of people think that the key to success is, you hear these stories, no one becomes a billionaire if they don't walk on people along the way. I don't think that's true. I think that if you build your business on a solid foundation of being a good person, I don't know if it makes you get to the 3 Comma Club or not, but I don't think that matters either, right? Yeah. There's a lot more than money. So I just have to tell you both that I think you guys are two of the best human beings I know. And I think that has been, timing, all those things play a role, right? All the ingredients put in together and mixed to create where you are now and where you'll be. But I think that's one of the biggest ingredients to the whole thing.
Wow. Thank you, man.
Thank you.
I mean, that
means a lot. So.
And a lot of people share that same sentiment, to be honest. We're very blessed to have a lot of, people come through these doors that own Arsenal Strength around the country. And one thing that, is without question mentioned is the fact that they know you personally, they have your number, and every time they can pick up the call, they pick up the phone, they speak to either one of you guys, and they all say, "They're such incredible people," and that's a very hard, kind of thing to hear these days. A lot of people will always try to find fault or want to pull somebody down.
That's right.
It's such a common thing, but to hear somebody being put on a pedestal and they've spent the money. They've already done it, and the gym is going in whatever direction. It could be going well, it could be going bad. I've heard every story.
Right.
But one thing they'll say is, I had a fantastic experience. Andrew was such a great guy. Jamie's really tough to deal with.
Okay.
No, people
will
will literally say that I've even introduced you guys to. They're like, man, they're so nice.
They're
like,
so nice.
Is that for real?
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean?
Truly,
like, because they're trying to figure out, like, is that a front and we're going to meet the real people later? It's like, no, that's you're meeting them. That's who they are. And I think people are really surprised, especially people who aren't from the South too.
Yeah.
For sure.
We are obviously all from the South, but I think you guys take it a step further than just, Southern charm, right? Because Southern charm in a lot of ways is like, bless your heart, you fucking bitch. I mean, that's the truth, right?
Yeah, it is. It's true.
Yeah.
It's very fake. It's very,
Yeah,
it's 100%. Thank you guys for saying that. I mean,
absolutely,
that's the best compliment somebody can get, to be genuine and actually have, character. And unfortunately, I really feel that nowadays it's the people, just in general, where the world's at, people are just kind of nuts, and it's easier to kind of stand out now.
Yeah.
It's doing the right thing is so easy, but it's so, it just doesn't happen anymore.
Underutilized.
Absolutely. It's really sad.
It's weird. It's
It is
weird, right? Like it almost seems like common sense, right?
100%.
You could either do the right thing or not, and it's like harder to not.
Yeah.
But it seems like more people choose it now than ever.
It's kind of a badge of honor in some cases to not do it. You know what I mean? I've seen some people, it's just like, but I do want to kind of dig now. I want to get into the nitty gritty of what all the viewers want to really hear, and that is, the mindset of where you were, the stress, the vulnerability, the sleepless nights of starting Arsenal Strength Up. We've all been there as entrepreneurs, as business owners, as Ali mentioned earlier. Only people want to see the Instagram reels. They only want to see the success. They don't want to hear about what it took to get there.
That's right. I
know Ali's story. I know Doug's story. This is why him and I have so much respect for him, because they don't want to see, they don't want to hear the boss turning up and rolling up his sleeves. They want to hear that he's employed 6 people to do his job. I know this guy leaving the house at 4 o'clock in the morning because the truck hasn't turned up or something else is, and I'm like, Doug, I gotta go. And I don't have to say, it's like the respect is there, and I also know your guy's story. So let's go back to, now talking about that very first piece and designing it, and get back into that mindset of where you were 2015 and getting the company moving.
Yeah. Go back there. So obviously, I want to start by saying, like, we've achieved success as far as a business, the growth, all the accolades, etc. But we are still so far from where we need to be in every aspect, from a revenue profitability aspect, from a customer service. Our customer service is great. It can always be better. Always. Every aspect can improve. But in 2015, when we really started it, the company, and it was actually March 23rd of 15 when we actually had the website and launched, like, legitimately. It was, the time we had a contract manufacturer making the product for us. So, and at the time, to be honest, I was the sales, customer service, the logistics. I had to basically learn really quick how to ship containers internationally and deal with all the paperwork and all that nightmare. So that was definitely a learning experience. And as we grew, that was one thing that was really cool. I was talking to somebody yesterday. We literally became international the first few months.
Yeah.
We were selling international the first literally 2 months. So that was really, really cool to kind of watch. You're not just selling within Tennessee.
So you probably didn't know what that was going to be like either, right? You didn't know all the issues and the bonds and all.
Correct. And previously, I had sold equipment for another company that has been outside the U.S., but I've never done like the brokering and the logistics side of it.
Yeah.
So that was definitely very interesting. And, as far as like a mindset, the first 2 years, I didn't sleep much, like straight up. Like, it was stress, but for me personally, it was different. When you truly know the industry, and in any industry, if you're gonna start a clothing company or whatever, if you truly know the industry and you know kind of what gap you need to fill, it doesn't seem as risky to you. Like stepping back now, it does. Like we mentioned earlier, but it never has. I've never been scared about it. I truly have. It's just been like, this is what's got to happen. These are the steps that we have to go. But it at the time, it was more about just getting the product out there. How do we grow and not grow too fast? And then the biggest hurdle we faced in 2016 was our manufacturer saying, "Hey, you guys are doing great. We can't take any more business.
Can't keep up."
And it's like, it's exciting because you're growing, but then it's like, well, now what do we do?
What's another problem?
It's a hurdle that would honestly cripple most businesses. And I think because of the kind words you were saying of how we've treated our customers and we communicated with them. If there was 6 months between 16 and 17, we did not take orders because I could not take somebody's money
and then not deliver.
And no, we didn't have a manufacturer.
We didn't even know.
You didn't know.
I was literally
it.
correct. We went from the one contract manufacturer. I'm flying around the country, speaking to manufacturing facilities, something I know very little about, trying to sell them. Basically, I can sell millions of dollars of equipment a year, and they're probably thinking whatever.
Yeah,
we had we could historically show them financially, but it was just like
you had no POs in hand,
correct?
Right? So that they're having to take you at face value.
100%. So that was a really tough season that I'd never ever wanted to go back to. That was probably the hardest for me personally. And I think if you talk, Jamie's going to have a different season that was probably maybe the hardest for her.
I think that to answer that part of that mindset question, knowing you, is that you believed. That's why it wasn't so much of a 100%. Risk for you. You believed so much that this hole in the market needed to be fulfilled. You knew you could do it because you're the visionary, right? And so it was just like, no, this is going to happen, and I'm going to figure it out. But I think it's that belief in yourself.
Yes, it is.
In each other, and then in obviously the second child you had, right, which is Arsenal. So I think if you really truly believe in the product that you're going to give someone, whether it's a product, a service, whatever it is, I mean, there is really no failing. There's learning. Because whatever you would fail at, like just say I'm sure you tried to ship a container and you're like, oh man, I didn't realize about this logistic and then you learn from it. So it's like, I feel like if you have that belief in yourself, which I know you guys did, that's probably why you felt like there's no real risk. You weren't scared because it's like, I believe in this so much.
100%.
I'm curious too. You said that, and I'm just curious. You had to go around and meet with manufacturers, right?
That's correct.
Did you learn a lot during that has benefited you now? Because had you not have had to go through that, right? Now you guys are, I'm fast forwarding a little bit, you're manufacturing in-house, you have a manufacturing facility.
That's correct.
Did that help you to better understand, what to do or maybe what not to do from going around and seeing everybody else?
It definitely did. And I learned a lot. And kind of going back to what Allie just said, when you make mistakes, you better take notes. And learn from those mistakes and not repeat them.
Sure.
Mistakes are very expensive.
Especially, shipping container mistakes. Like, that's the good one. So going and meeting with these different manufacturers, I definitely learned a lot that I wish I'd known then that I know now.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it really, the manufacturer that we ended up going with, the second one to do the OEM, it was a perfect situation at the time because they needed revenue, they needed sales, and we needed somebody to make the product. So it was a good fit for the time. And then I think kind of fast forwarding, a little bit during that process, so call it like up to 2019, there was another manufacturer in Tennessee at the time that were like really being very adamant about producing product for us. So we were like, okay, so we gave them a shot, and the quality was much, much greater and better than the quality of our current manufacturer. And it was the best analogy I've always say, it was literally like Rocky IV. Like their manufacturing facilities and capabilities were literally like the Russian in Rocky IV, where it's like high tech. It's unbelievable. And then we've got this Tennessee guys that literally looks like there's probably meth being sold in the back.
What's the timeline on this?
So this was 2018 going into 2019.
Sort of to catch up, 2015, 2016, you were
Grinding.
pretty much doing everything yourself. You were answering the calls, you were answering the emails. You know, basically somebody was wanting to do an inquiry or a PO or whatever else.
So
you were just changing your voice every time you know, hold on, let me just speak it on to, Phil. Hello, how are you doing? But this is, again, we've laughed and joked about it, but we even said back then, you know, you were literally handing off to the next department, which was yourself. The company was growing at such a rapid pace. Then we had the issues with the manufacturing, which was 2016. 2017, if I'll make sure that the viewers understand the timelines here, so we're not going all over the place. 2017, we caught up somewhat, and again, so we can just fill in years categories.
Yes.
So we're not, because again, listen, if the viewers understood what each year was to Arsenal Strength, I think many would have just said, fuck this.
100%.
Because every year was a new struggle, a different issue. It was a lot of growth issues. There was a lot of, again, exponential growth equals, you know, good and bad.
Right.
And again, and that's what we were dealing with, right?
That's right.
People started seeing the quality of equipment. People started talking about it. Social media started gravitating to it. We had the Dragon's Lair at that point in time too. So the pieces were slowly coming in. People were starting to get on the pieces. So there was kind of this organic lift of all these pieces coming together, and it was like, what's this Arsenal Strength? And then certain pieces became kind of like our signature pieces, the leg press, the vertical leg press, and other pieces of that nature, because people were like, oh my God, have you tried the new Arsenal Strength X piece? And then that X piece kept on evolving every single year, and it was like, man, and then people then started hitting me up. Hey, you're affiliated with this company. Can I get a free? Oh my God. But again, when you hear that, and you got somebody who is of influence that's asking you for free pieces, you know you're kind of moving into a good direction, right? Regardless of what happens. So if we can just pick it up, and even if you kind of shave down the years, 2017, 2018, because there's so much texture and so much story to each year, and a lot of stress too. So I don't want to overshadow anything, because listen, this is an incredible story that I want the viewers to hear.
Absolutely.
You know, this is a story that is kind of like the American dream, right? Absolutely. You guys have had this idea. You've created something. We've now been able to employ close to 200, if not over 200, American, you know, families that we support. That's right. American made, American steel. This is very prideful for myself, as it is for everybody in this room, because we all have a story that relates to this. But again, get into the nitty gritty. Don't skip over anything, because this was, you know, a story that needs to be told. Again, this is a story that many people can relate, whether it's a business owner that themselves going through their struggles, or whether it's somebody that is an athlete that had no clue, that has trained on these pieces for many a year, but now can be like, holy shit, like, this is a hell of a piece with one hell of a story. So again, this is a podcast that you guys just fucking bleed it out. We want to hear the story. I know the story, but give it to the viewers of where we are now. So we'll go back to 2017, 2018.
2017, you know, it was, every year's had the hurdles and you know, the typical business stuff. You know, 17, we were really just trying to keep up with lead times, continue to grow. That's when, I think at the end of 17 is when it was called USA Strength at the time. Yep. That was the Tennessee manufacturer that was like, hey, you know, we want to make some products. So the first piece was the T-bar, the reloaded T-bar row. That was the first product that we kind of conceptualized to them that they created. And then basically through 17 and 18, that specific manufacturer produced about 10 SKUs for us. The other one was producing around 40. So in 18, we were advised, you know, financial advisors, shout out to Freddie.
Shout out to Freddie.
Yeah, I mean, Freddie and James at Bank of America, they were kind of looking at this thing from a, you know, 30,000 foot view, and like, have you guys ever thought about getting into manufacturing? And
No.
Yeah,
Right.
no,
That's my
right?
first answer.
Yeah.
I mean, I've thought about it, but
Yeah,
I've never
but
been like,
we're gonna
want to
do it.
pursue that.
Yeah.
And because that's not what I know.
But
And
also, it's such a completely different,
It
it's
is.
different
Part of the
wheelhouse.
business.
Yes,
is.
it's something that feeds us, but my gosh, the sourcing of the steel, the employment, I mean, it's just a different rabbit hole.
Well, and do
Man,
you
it's-
want to touch on, I know this, right? But the reason and the rhyme behind that thought process was our industries are similar.
right.
Customers want to be, there are net terms involved, and then you've got to front load all that capital and then offer terms and basically act as a
That's
bank
right.
almost,
Yep.
right? And I have to do the same thing in my business. So
Yeah.
I can relate. As you scale, the more revenue you generate, the more you have to output.
Yep.
So
That's right.
that was the thought process, right? In why the manufacturing started to make sense, or at least that was, I think, their thought process in bringing it
100%.
up, right?
Yeah, and I think when you talk about scaling a business, one thing that people forget, like you talked about earlier, Flex, it's like the glitz and glamour. Maybe you did, Allie. It's like, oh, fancy cars and a title on your Instagram. But it's like what you talked about, Doug. There's a lot of capital that goes into, especially when you start talking about manufacturing, like all the inventory that you have to carry, the labor that goes into that,
The machines that you have to have.
that you have to
Yeah.
have,
The people.
The warehouses.
people, the warehouse, the space alone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is,
And you got to maintain all that.
and you have
Correct.
to maintain that. And so, it was for the longest time, it was just us. Like,
How long was you? So I know, the 2014 and 15 was the concept, right? You started,
Yeah.
you said March 23rd,
March 23rd, 15.
2015, with how many SKUs in mind, right? And then when does it go from the Jamie and Andrew show to the, we got to hire someone
Well,
to
where
do
did
our
Brad
sales?
come in?
That's what I was
You
about
know?
to say.
Yeah.
Shout out
So-
to Brad.
Shout out to
Brad
Brad.
Hall.
Brad
Yeah,
Hall.
so-
Brad is
First employee.
one of the,
Yeah.
The
that
best.
was,
I mean, he's
yeah, it
incredible.
was 20, and Brad's gonna be like, you don't
know.
even know the
I know.
exact date. It was either the very end of 16 or the beginning of 17.
Yeah.
But the
Right.
funny thing, I will say this quick about Brad. Not long after we had started, one of the first gem
yeah.
designs, the full one we did in Oak Ridge, I met Brad, and Brad at the time was working with Life Fitness.
Like fitness,
Yeah.
Thomas Strength.
And
Yeah.
he saw, he's aware of the industry very, very
Oh
high
my God.
level.
He's been in it for years.
He has. He saw what we were doing and was like, I want to be a part of this. And
Yeah.
I joke now, but he wanted to be a part. But I was like, I want you to be a part too, but I just can't pay you.
Yeah.
We cannot pay you
Yeah,
right
we
now.
had
Right.
this conversation
Yeah,
many times
that's
back
right.
then. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how it started. And then, really Brad came on, and that was such a relief as far as from the sales.
Sales.
And the other thing I'll say about Brad is not just the sales, but the product development knowledge. That dude was very much underappreciated his last job
Absolutely.
on a major scale. And, he's been a massive asset to our growth in our company.
100%.
And
our culture.
100%. Yeah, he really has. So shout out to that guy. We could not be here if that was not for him.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Brad is. We've all got our own stories of Brad. Of course, I was able to start up the Dragon's Lair before Arsenal became Arsenal.
That's right.
Through the hodgepodge of various different equipment, thanks to Brad, because him and I had this grand plan of stockpiling various pieces of equipment, and then over time we put it away, and then he came down to help me put it all together. Again, unaffiliated,
Right.
but this is how Brad is. He's invested in relationships, and that's one of the things that always stood out for me. Again, with Brad is how many people would talk about Brad just like you guys.
No doubt.
Yeah.
So that's what our conversation was. I remember it's like, oh man, Brad would be the absolute perfect employee if only we could do that. And fair play to Brad, he was just like, listen, I'm here for the ride.
He was patient.
Let me come on board, and whenever the time is right. And I
right.
remember that day when you messaged me, and I think Brad sneakily messaged you before me. He was like, I'm so excited. Don't tell Andrew I told you this. But
It was almost like every month, like once a month, I get a text. He's like, you ready?
you ready?
Brad's a super
Yeah.
short texter.
Yeah.
And take
So it's
note,
like-
people.
Right.
That's how you do it.
That's
Yeah.
Really.
Yes,
You-
listen to the
That is
advice
true.
here, guys.
100%.
It's not about being a pain in the ass. It's about being, I would say, a squeaky wheel in a
Consistently
very,
persistent.
yes,
right?
consistently persistent. I like
Without
that.
being really annoying.
Yeah, it was
Consistently
definitely
persistent.
never. It was just very
Yes.
short. He was just, he just wanted me to know.
Yeah.
I'm ready if you're ready.
Yeah.
And
Well,
I,
he
I
believed in
appreciate
you.
that.
He believed
did.
in you.
He
and the
believed.
vision.
He seen what we
Yeah.
were doing. But to go back, not to jump off Brad because we love Brad, but we want to go back to what we were saying before we segued in. But we were talking about manufacturing and the growth and go back to.
Oh yeah. So I was, to your point, Doug, talking about it was just us two,
right?
And it was just our funds. Like that didn't go very far whatsoever, right?
Sure.
So we were barely making any money. Everything was going back in the business. We're trying to grow this, and so to think about taking on a manufacturing facility, we honestly thought it was impossible. Like we're like, there's no way we can't financially do this. Like we didn't have a backing. We didn't have an investor. The investors were ourselves and the customers, because we reinvested those funds. And so we kind of got to a point of no return. We had no choice but to figure out a way to make this work. And I don't even know, other than when USA started making the products, we saw the quality and we're like, we have to figure out how to buy them. Like we have to buy this facility because we need to have more control over our whole process. Yeah. The supply chain was killing us. This is even pre-pandemic. And we wanted to really have control over our lead times and our quality, most importantly. And so we figured out a way, and we sat. I think Andrew sat down with USA at Dunkin' Donuts one day, and he's
That's
like,
correct.
"We're so casual," and this is where this is probably not normal, but he's like, "Hey, we want to buy you." That's not how it. That's not how it typically goes.
Yeah,
right. But that's been our style, and that's how like you said, it is what it is, and this is how we are, and this is how we're gonna do business. Like we're not gonna play games. Like we're not here to negotiate. Like we want to buy you, and it's a yes or no answer. And he's like, sure. Yeah. So it was that simple.
Sure.
Sure. We'll sell it to you.
Sure. I think people respond well, though. You guys are real, right? Yeah. Like you come in with no ego. And so I think that helps. Your entry point with people is a little different when there's no arrogance, and so I can imagine that going well, because I've been in meetings like that, on the giving and receiving end. And I think if you're just real, people respond so well to that. I don't know why that's hard for a lot of people to grasp. They have to put up some kind of a front.
Yeah, it's an insecurity, I think.
Like some kind
people are just insecure. They mask it, or they feel like they have to have this persona, or
I think it's fear related. I think that they're afraid to hear a no. And I think that's where if you want something, if you want to grow a business or you're trying to do something, like you can't be afraid to hear no.
Right.
You just have to go and ask for what you want. If you're not going to ask for what you want, then nobody's ever going to know what you want, and you're never going to get there. And so I think that's where, we're just, knocking on doors and not afraid to hear the word no. We'll just find a window, or we'll come through the side door. I don't know. Like you just find a way to get what you want. Yeah. And you can't be afraid to hear no.
So in that transitional period of purchasing the manufacturer, for the viewers, talk us through that change, what you had to go through, what you had to do. And again, I
dumb that down.
but I want to know, and I want the viewers to understand that, you bought a manufacturer. This is now, no, there was a massive change. There was a lot of infrastructure change. There was a lot of purchasing of various different specialty, machines, and if you want to talk about the cost too, please talk, because this was not by any stretch of the imagination a cheap turnover.
Or how'd you go and about getting the capital to start back? If you want to buy someone, how do you buy them?
All of the above. We have a lot of people in business that are going to love that, follow the story.
Yeah.
And obviously.
Okay, I've got to think through the process. But
so timeline, just to kind of give you before you get into the details. Okay. When we actually purchased USA, it was February of 19. Yep. So that was when we bought the manufacturing and brought that in-house. So that is the timeline.
So 4 years of just your own funds, your own team that grew. And then
that was actually the first time we actually ever had brought on any debt.
Yeah, so we ran the company debt-free up until the time we purchased the manufacturing facility. And the only debt we brought on, so we leveraged for people that are in business, like we leveraged our AR, and we're able to get essentially a line of credit. And that was how we purchased all the raw materials. And we took on a small note of debt to purchase the actual facility itself and the whole business, all the business assets. And so that's the first time we ever had debt, which that's against my philosophy of all things. Like I'm anti-debt. But we felt comfortable in doing that. Our debt to income ratio was still really low, so we felt confident that this was the right decision. And then obviously we had a margin pickup from, sourcing all those ourselves,
Right. Yeah.
bringing everything in-house. But more importantly, we controlled the process now, and we controlled the quality. And that was what was most important to Andrew at that point in time. But the transition of going from a contract manufacturer to our own in-house manufacturing with the amount of orders we had on hand was absolutely insane. And looking back, I don't know how we did it. And we didn't even know what we were doing at this point. It was
Right.
such an immature move on our part as just business owners, hindsight. But it was like that, ignorance is bliss. It's like, we'll just figure it out. And they weren't even in the same town as us. So we were commuting like an hour to get there. And Andrew dumped about $1 million of new orders on them day one. So as soon as we took ownership, he was like, here's $1 million. Figure out how to make this and figure out how to ship it out in 8 weeks.
Yep.
Oh, and figure out how to make the product as far as like redesign it and all that.
Engineering.
Because he wanted, sorry.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say one thing on that. Actually, two things. One of the reasons how we did it is because we have amazing customers.
Absolutely.
Straight up, they're patient. They're understanding for the most part. There's always some that aren't as understanding, but overall they've been amazing. So every customer that's ever thought about purchasing, thank you, because we could
Thank
have
you.
never done it.
I want to ask something too about that before you continue.
Yeah.
The debt part.
Yeah.
Because I think I'm a lot like you. I really hate debt, right? I don't enjoy it and I don't like it in my business. But I think a lot of people who may be wanting to start a business or have a newly started business might have that same fear. So touch on, like, I know you guys understand it now. There is good debt, right? And businesses have to get comfortable with good debt in order to scale. And almost no business, to my knowledge, has been able to do it without that. So I'm curious, like, your take going from being that conservative, person who didn't really want to borrow. Like, how do you feel now about debt so that people can understand that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think establishing a business, you should not do it in debt. I think you should find a way to cash flow, and you should make all the sacrifices until you get to a point where you can support debt and you need debt.
Yeah.
And I agree with you, Doug. I don't know many companies that can scale this rapidly without bringing on some debt. And I think when you bring on debt, you really have to understand what you're bringing on.
Yeah.
And you need to be able to understand the cash flow and how that impacts your debt repayment. And then have a plan to get out of debt.
Yeah.
As quickly as possible.
Sure.
I think that can be good. It can be very beneficial. It helps you grow faster. I mean, in this case, it helped us grow a lot faster than we probably could because
it's also cheaper than equity.
It is
right?
very
'Cause
much
that's the
cheaper
alternative.
than equity.
Very much.
And that's the alternative. And especially at the time, interest rates were very low. They were in the 2s and 3s. Now I don't even know what they're what's going on. But so it was cheap money.
Right.
Yeah.
Cheaper back then than it is today. And so you've got to weigh that the balance out. Like, okay, if I need $100,000 at this percentage, this is the repayment plan. I can cash flow this for 12 months. It gives me X benefit. Then I think it's safe to say. But I think you really have to understand the numbers at that point when you're talking about bringing on debt.
Yeah.
And I think so often, people are like, oh, I'll just get somebody to, I'll get the bank to write a note. Well, also, getting debt is not that easy as a new company. Like,
right.
you're going to put, like, even to this day, like, you're going to put your house on the line. You're going to put any assets you have on the line. If you've got,
depending who you borrow from, right?
Yeah,
Banks,
yeah.
it's always personally guaranteed.
That's
right.
Alternative lenders, you're going to pay 4 times the interest.
Exactly.
But it's on they're taking the risk in that.
Yeah,
case.
they're taking that burden. But there's that different side of doing business where it's like you don't think about that. Like, you have to take some responsibility for this, and you're everything is on the line at that point.
Yeah.
And
which is what people I think miss, right? They want to see that highlight reel or the cool shit on Instagram or whatever, right? But they don't realize that you put it all out on the line to be able to reap that reward.
Yeah.
Right. The employees I know, and I'm sure you guys can relate, they sometimes don't see that part.
They definitely don't
right.
see that.
They don't know.
No, they don't know.
They don't.
And
in all respects.
And guess what? The minute you have a slow week or a slow month, who's not getting paid?
Right.
And they'll look at
exactly.
the car you're driving.
Yeah.
And they'll be
Yep.
like, "Well,
Yeah.
you guys are doing well." It's like,
Yeah,
it doesn't
or you
work
hear
like
the
that.
must be
Doesn't.
nice.
Must be nice.
It must be nice.
At 5
It
p.m.
must
they're
be nice.
also turning it off, and
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, there's definitely pros and cons.
There's pros
Yeah.
and cons. Like, there's no turning it off. Like, we work all night. I mean, especially if anything major is going on, we're working night. Andrew didn't sleep basically for 2 years. I know, everybody's in this room's been
Yeah.
through that. But you eat last. And it seems kind of, like what people perceive as maybe the opposite. But you've got to make sure you take care of your employees, because if you don't pay them, they're not coming back.
Oh, yeah.
You have
Yeah.
to show up.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
I think people don't see that part to it. But also everyone can't be an entrepreneur.
Correct.
And have an entrepreneurial mindset or spirit, or we wouldn't have companies,
That's
right?
right.
You,
You need
you
the team.
absolutely need
Exactly.
the worker bees, right?
Yep.
You need the people who don't want to work past 5,
Yeah.
and that's okay.
100%.
Exactly. Yeah.
The world works that way. I mean, if we didn't have more workers than we had entrepreneurs, where the hell would we?
Yeah.
Right.
I know.
No, for sure.
It's got to be the balance. But I
Okay.
think,
So you guys got manufacturing.
Yes. So the first one was the customers. Just props to them. And without customers like that, we would not have been able to do what we. So the other part was this: if you can imagine, we bought this manufacturing facility. We've got business as usual. So we have to continue processing orders, making them out. But now I'm going to ask you. I'm going to drop you on your head with new orders, and then I'm going to ask you to create 40 new products that the other manufacturer was making,
Yep.
while simultaneously fulfilling orders.
Yeah.
Fun times. So that was very, very difficult.
Who was running that now? Was it you or the existing owner or the previous owner?
So as far as running
The manufacturing.
so at this time, this is after we purchased manufacturing.
Yeah.
We brought in 2 partners that were the manufacturing arm of the company.
Okay.
That they were running the operations on that from the day to day.
Got it.
So they were feeling the heat on the obstacle. They had to fulfill these orders in the lead times that within a reasonable lead time, and then basically engineer all these products, because there's different processes with engineering. One manufacturer might have certain equipment, and they can't, unless you have that exact same equipment, they might not be able to do it exactly, like slot and tab and some of these other processes. So that was a learning curve, and there was just another stressful time that would typically crush a company, to be honest. How looking back, it's like, how in the world do we do that? But again, it goes back to having great customers and communicating with them, and then letting them know, like, guys, we can't. This time we were still taking orders and we have products, but it was definitely it'll kind of tighten you up. You're just like, what is going on? We got to make this happen.
How many tears were shed during this time, Jamie?
There's a lot of tears. I think that this was one of the hardest parts for me, besides post-pandemic. But it was I wasn't concerned that we weren't going to do it, but it just seemed like every day there was something that would come up, and it was like
It's like
you just
whack-a-mole.
yeah.
You're a firefighter.
It's just like you're firefighting, and it's like, we've got to get these products out the door. Like, we have to take care of our customers. We're very customer centric. And, to think about the longer you wait to get product out the door, that's also cash flow. So I still live in that world where, I'm so involved in the financial aspect of the business, even to this day, where like, I just want to make sure that we're taking care of our people and, the company's profitable. And so that was hard to watch and to see and to live in, honestly.
Did you guys pause any orders at all or do anything because you were afraid of scaling too quickly at that point?
So the second manufacturing switch, so to say, we did not pause orders because we were still fulfilling orders. The first time we literally paused, like, can't take your order. I mean, there was people like, hey, I want to order these 5 pieces. I'm like, I would love to get you these pieces, but just being straight up, I don't know when these could be done.
Right.
We're figuring out this manufacturing. I was very vulnerable, but I think people, for the most part, they understood and they came back and purchased.
Which is awesome.
Which is amazing. I mean, that's doing the right thing and being upfront and transparent. That's, some people might say, well, you don't show all your cards, but it's like, that's the right thing to do. And it paid dividends.
Yeah.
So, the second switch, when we actually acquired the manufacturing, that we did not pause anything. Another thing that we did that was, hopefully other business owners, and this is not us searching for a pat on the back, but really trying to truly care about your people. We actually purchased 2 different vans to help commute them, because this, I mentioned earlier, the meth lab looking manufacturer, it was an hour away from Knoxville in the middle of nowhere in a small town.
Yeah.
And the talent pool is very, very low. So you're having to get people from Knoxville to drive, and some of them live like in East Knoxville. Yeah. It's like 2 hours just to get to work. And that's just, it's crazy. So we want to do whatever we can to invest in them, just to make their life and create, help create a culture that is that they actually understand and want to be a part of.
Yeah. I remember taking this drive.
Oh my gosh,
we kept on driving and driving and driving. And I was like, hey guys, at one point in time, we would obviously, all of us together, there's never a silent moment, right? We're just talking about like everything, life, whatever.
Yeah.
And then in the end, I was like, guys, how long left until this place? And then, you get to see this massive warehouse on the horizon. We pull in, and of course, you walk in and it's just incredible. Everybody's just, working hard. And I think there's some early footage that I could possibly get for Bronson to showcase this.
Oh, yeah.
I remember those videos.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We had probably 50, 60 employees at that time.
About 60, yeah.
And there's a lot of people that are still with us to this day from
Definitely
back then.
are.
Yeah.
Yeah, so just because the show, going back to what you said about culture, right? And how you've looked after people, and it's a very appreciated job when you've got, my dad comes from, a welding background, so that's very tough. Obviously there's it's a certain environment, it's very tough, as I said. It's hot when it's hot, it's cold when it's cold. And these guys are a very labor-intensive job, but when you do the small things, especially where you got a blue-collar worker, that goes so far. My dad working in steel for all them years, 40-something years, he's an ant. When the company got purchased twice over, it was just a new person that came in that owned it. They're looking at the bottom line. They're looking at how much my dad has been there for all these years, and, there was no appreciation. But when you show the smallest of things to your employees, it goes so far, especially when you lead from the front, and I know what he does. Right. There's kind of that respect factor, and doing all the things like picking these guys up, saving them money on gas. This is one of the reasons why we had the workforce we do. So, again, Knoxville, Tennessee, moving the manufacture of. I don't want to kind of jump all over the place, but I want to keep this.
Yeah. So, I'm trying to also remember details like month to month, but so that was in 19. Really, the rest of 19 was just fulfilling orders, getting these products, getting everything we needed.
Getting caught up, building that infrastructure.
Yeah. And then 2020 started. And at the very end of 19 is when we realized, okay, we need to move our manufacturing facility outside of this area. And so we were on the search for a building. And to find a building adequate size we needed, there's not a lot of, there's not a lot of opportunities.
There's not much availability.
No, there's not. So long story short, we found a building. It was like the perfect location. It's 125,000 square feet, so it's good size. There's 17.3 acres, so there's additional property to build, new buildings in the future. It was March of 2020, right when things got super weird, is when we actually signed the lease on that property. So really, in 2020, that's when we really started. We moved everything from Madisonville in May.
Yep.
Yeah.
Of 2020, and then the other thing that happened in 2020 was our business partners on the manufacturing side. When we bought USA, they own a machine shop called TGS Precision. They manufacture anything from Pepsi to Disney to a lot of the marine industry components and parts, and they also provided Arsenal for all the parts and components. So we actually ended up merging that in and creating a holding company that owns both companies and move them in the space as well. So we've got 2 separate entities in the same building with the same ownership and all that, which it helped from a vertical integration.
Yeah, vertical integration, supply chain. We were really controlling raw materials at that point, some of the other additional components.
So that kind of got us through 2020. 2020 was such a weird year. I hate so many businesses did horrible and so many did well, but you don't want to be one of the you don't want to brag about that, like how well companies did in 2020.
Well, it's business, right? So you look at me personally, and even with Doug, you know, where his space was, had it not been for, you know, COVID, life would have possibly continued on, and we wouldn't be, you know, wouldn't be in Vegas. You know, had it not you been coming to Vegas and planting that seed for me, I wouldn't be here. So there's so many kind of pros and cons, right? Yeah. Me as the brand, overnight, boom, all my appearances, it was just everything gone.
Yeah.
But then when it came to Arsenal strength, I mean, that skyrocketed. So again, if you're looking at it from the business perspective, you know, COVID for us kind of worked out for us.
Yeah, I think fitness equipment in general in 2020. I mean, there's not, you know, sales increased for everybody, really.
Yeah, they needed something to do.
Yeah,
that's right.
Everyone to the garage gym or something.
The one thing I will say about that, and that I'm very proud, the thing I'm most proud of about that whole year, and how the team performed, and then also just how we kind of positioned ourselves in the industry. Mm-hmm. All the other companies panicked, and they're like, we got to start doing home gym stuff. We got to have, that's got to be in a home gym. Everything, they just shifted, and they really kind of crapped on the gym owners that have gotten them to where they are.
Right.
And that's where we really took a strong stance. We're like, you know what? Yeah. They need us now more than ever to do, you know, to support them. And we're not changing our model just because of fear. Yeah. Like, we know who we are. I mean, that target, we know where we're going, and that's part of it. So we focused on gyms, and I would say even more, like really we did a giveaway to really try to help
we did
gyms, you know, their members are getting behind them, trying to support them, because there's so many gyms that they crumbled during that time, depending on the state, especially where they they were. But to grow like we did without changing our business model. Like, did our residential sales improve and increase? They did, but we didn't shift that focus. We still were selling to gyms and really trying to support and help them in any way we could.
Yeah, it's more like we dug deep into the morals and integrity 100%. Of what the brand was for all of us, and we
going against
forward.
The flow.
Exactly.
That's a good point, though. I think another thing for people who are in business, knowing your core competency and sticking to it.
Yeah.
Because you see it all the time in business where a company tries to pivot into something that's really not their core competency, and they fail.
That's right.
It happens so often. So I think that's a great message too, to like know what you're good at. Focus. And just because there's potentially an opportunity that might make a little bit of money, it doesn't mean you chase every one of those.
That's very, very, very true.
It's very true. Well said. And I think you're right. That's where I think some people make mistakes, and they're like, no, we need to pivot and do this, but we're not good at this. But I remember we were sitting in a meeting. We had our top managers there, and there was just the talk about, do we need to do something more residential? And Andrew and I kind of were just like looking at each other and thinking, and Andrew was just like, no, like just no, which he doesn't usually say. He's not that stern. And he's like, this is who we are. This is what we're gonna do, and we're gonna make it work. And so, you know, my team, the marketing team, was like, all right, how do we help support gym owners? And we came up with a stimulus package. And we're like, okay, we're going to actually give them money. Basically, we gave them free equipment. So we really wanted to help. These people have stuck by us since day one. Like, how can we turn our backs on them now? Like, you have helped build. I mean, you are the business, right? Yeah. So we can't just abandon you because we're going through a weird 2020 pandemic thing.
Well, and you also stayed open, right? And you supplied these families with jobs, which a lot of companies didn't do, right? Yeah. So there's a benefit to the fact that you profited off of this weird time that you didn't expect to, right? But to go back to also, you said, you know, residential, but I think the biggest misconception is you have to own a huge gym to purchase from Arsenal, right? Or any of that, right? Because you wouldn't think, but I do know this one fact that I think a lot of people didn't, is that if you were to call and say, you know, I have this square footage, right? Like, and I want, this is what I'm into, this is what I want. You guys would help design. And so you, in a sense, always could do residential. It was 100%. No, like, I don't do residential, or I just do gyms. But I remember people coming, I like these pieces, I want one. It's like, well, call them. You can just buy one thing. You don't need to buy a whole gym. And they'll also help you, because I know Brad and you, Andrew, are really great at the design and the concept of right, this is the space I have, and this is what I really like to focus on. What pieces should I get? So there was that personalization that also is always a part of the business. That
absolutely,
you don't get that with other businesses. I can't call Life Fitness and be like, hey, so this is the square footage I have. Can you help me? And they're like, what do you want? You know, so
they're gonna say you need 50 treadmills.
Yeah,
right.
No, I don't. I need 5.
they're gonna tell you what. Yeah.
We all have a mutual friend who actually, speaking of home gyms, has probably the most impressive Arsenal home gym. We won't mention who, but
Yes.
the entire home is an Arsenal gym.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, that is a common thing though. People they don't. Is there a minimum we have to purchase or whatever? And you know the gym design and the layouts, the pieces are obviously what they are, but the whole flow and the atmosphere and the layout is so important. Yeah. If you're a gym owner and you've just got 5,000 square foot of space and you're just buying equipment, like what's really separating you from the gym 2 miles down the road? Like, what is it? There's got to be something. You have to differentiate yourself and your business, no matter what industry you're in, to be successful. And that's where I think where we've, one of the factors that's helped us grow is that approach that we're taking. We're not just selling you stuff you don't need. We want to actually watch you win.
I will add to that. I've heard many a story where, again, it's circled back to myself, where they've either spoken to Brad or our sales team, where we've actually told them, it's like, listen, you guys don't even have enough space to even put these 2 or 3 extra pieces that you want. So we're kind of shooting yourself in the foot by, not selling them pieces, but yet it's not. It's the investment in the relationship. So if these people were to get rid of pieces or they expand their facility, whatever it will be, first people they turn into is us. Because again, we're not money hungry. We're there for the long-term investment. And not only that, to add to this too, you, the team at Arsenal Strength, work with the pre-existing pieces that these people also have, which a lot of people didn't know. So say you have, 10 pieces from a variety of different other companies, and they want another 10 pieces from Arsenal. You will look at the floor plan, design the design of the gym, spec it all out, move certain things around for flow, for design, everything else, and then add Arsenal pieces to their pre-existing pieces, which again, I don't know of another company that has done that or work with other pieces. They're like, get rid of them. We got to get our pieces in. And this is why the gym will look so much better, because we've got our pieces in, etc. So I think that, this is all the DNA that you guys created. Obviously everybody plays their role. I know what mine is, but this is the DNA that you two created for, the feedback that I get. And again, to circle back, I have all these walkthroughs through the gym, and a lot of people come here to get on certain pieces, or they might have certain pieces in their gym, or they want to create their own gym. So this has become like this showroom for Arsenal Strength. 100%. And every time we have a new piece, we've got the Viking press, which we coincidentally just shot today in Viking suits. Stay tuned. But again, people will come here and they're like, oh my God, when did this come out? And I love that. Yeah. No, I love that. And our front desk, more than anything else, get to hear all the stories, and then I get the feedback if I don't see these people themselves. And Arsenal Strength has become a massive part of myself and Ali's life. And at the Dragon's Lair, it's so fantastic to see people coming in, and this whole aura of walking in and seeing the pieces and the detail in the pieces and stuff. Again, it's just, the Dragon's Lair wouldn't be what it is without Arsenal Strength, and I want to thank you both for, just having the balls to continue through this, and go through it, and also create a family around all these storylines too, So it's a fantastic story, and again, I don't want to kind of cut this short. I know that
there's one thing I do want to go back to actually before you wrap it up, and I know because a lot of people who listen, they want to learn from people who've done it, right? And there's something you just said that I think, I don't care what business you're in, I think people should take away from what you said, and it's that the secret sauce to you guys is when you talk to a customer, it's not just as simple as the transaction, right? You want to help them. You want to understand how they're going to use the pieces, how they're going to create, what kind of environment they want to have. And then you guys work with them to make that vision come to life. And I think a lot of people focus on the transaction and doing transactional business, right? Just to quickly get the money.
That's right.
And it's a faster path to income possibly, but it doesn't create that partnership that you guys create with all of the clients you have. And I really think that people should take note of that, because you could take that order and be done.
That's right.
Or you could work with them and help them and make that vision come to life. And now you've got a customer for life.
Yep.
Who's going to probably tell 200 people they know to call you guys. And I really think that's something that's unique, and you just don't find it a lot anymore. So I hope that anyone listening to this takes note of that one thing, if anything, to listen,
Yeah.
Don't try to shove something down a customer's throat because it has a good margin for you, or whatever. Hear what they're saying, take note of it, and then try to really be an actual partner to them. Treat it the way you would be if you were on the opposite side of that phone call.
Be a problem solver.
Yeah.
Be a problem solver for them. Hearing if they're telling you the vision for their facility, it's only gonna you're in the position to kind of really try to help and guide them in the right direction. And it's like it's so common sense to me. It's like I just want to legitimately help other business owners win.
Yeah.
I mean, legitimately, that's what we really want to do. But that I appreciate that, and that is such a valid point. That it's it's not it's very underserved.
It
nowadays.
is. Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people are happy to be order takers.
For sure.
And there's nothing wrong with taking an order, but there's an opportunity on that call to develop something so much greater than that. And I think that's something that people lose sight of in business. So I hope that that's one thing that, if anything, take note of that and really hear your people.
100%, man.
Andrew always tells his team to be the guy. He's like, be the guy that people want to go to. Be the guy that people want to talk to. Be the guy outside of just, hey, I want this piece of equipment, but be the guy that's there for them when they're going through a struggle or they need to bounce some ideas off of. And so we genuinely want to help them, and we want our team to be the guy for them.
Yeah. And it doesn't always mean it's a billable hour or whatever, but that investment of time, it pays itself back.
Yeah.
Even if one person or two people take advantage of it, because they will.
And they will.
Those people exist, but I think in the long term, it always just ends up paying back.
Yeah.
100. And it's on that note, what she's saying, everybody's been in a conversation, you're like having a conversation about painting. Oh, I've got a guy you need to call. You want to be the guy. Anything fitness related, whether it's a gym, you want to become that guy or that person, guy, girl, whatever.
Yeah.
You want to be that contact. And whenever there's a topic or a business, you're the first thing that comes to mind.
Like Flex is the fluffer. If you ever need a fluffer,
he's the best.
Fucking king of fluff.
All day.
On that note, but again, what I want to do is kind of wrap all this up. So in the storyline. So, and again, if you need to go back and forth and anything where we were currently, in manufacturing, but with 2022, where has, in continuation from the last part of the story being told to 2022 are we? And I guess what are the lessons that have been learned in this last couple of years by purchasing the manufacturer and now where we are at Arsenal Strength?
Do you want to take this?
We'll tag team.
So I'll just say this first. 2020, we got through, it was good. 2021 was hard. Last August was, in my personal opinion, was the hardest month that I've ever faced from a personal level and a business level. We had a massive COVID outbreak, like 27, 28 people gone at one time. We had one of our team members pass away, who's been with us for forever.
Since the beginning.
Russ, right?
Yeah, Russ Acuff, man. That was really hard. It was hard personally, but it was hard internally, like just the vibe. That was, and then also, then you're starting to get into the supply chain, domestic supply chain issues, and that's where it really started hurting. And you saw all those different variables. You see your lead times go from X to way, way more. And those conversations with the customers really last fall were. It was the hardest for the sales team because they're having to basically go back and tell customers, hey, we've taken this order, but we were kind of promising you this time frame. Now it's this,
and there's nothing we could do.
There's literally nothing. I mean, if there was any way we could have problem solved, we would have done it. There was literally, our hands were completely tied, and that was the most helpless, frustrating part. But that's where you're truly learn to persevere, and you just got to make it happen. So, I'll let you kind of take over from that spot. That was rough.
It was emotional, right?
It was hard. It was hard to see Andrew because he's like the eternal optimist, right? So he's always in a good mood. He's always like, this is going to be fine. Like, we'll get through this. I'm usually more of the realist, if you will. And so he was down because he felt like he was disappointing our customers. And, we're watching steel prices go like this, and we're watching the steel vendors ration their materials, and we can't get things in-house. And so we're just kind of sitting there like, we're trying to source steel everywhere. We're trying to get other materials. And, there's rationing going on. There's no products available. And if there are, now we've got, price gouging. And so
one other thing. There's no people.
Yeah.
Because nobody wants to work.
Nobody wants to work. That's right. Everybody wanted,
it was
stay
like
at home.
The great resignation. And not that we had actually people leave. We needed more people to come on board.
Yeah, we were trying to hire.
We were trying to hire.
And 100 people we were looking for at one point in time.
And we were trying to add 2 shifts, and we couldn't do it. We couldn't fill a second shift. Like, we had done everything we possibly could at this point, and we're just kind of, looking at each other like, what's going to happen, And we were really concerned about our customers, and that those conversations, our sales team, like, we didn't want to leave them hanging out to dry. We developed like a team that would support and talk to our customers for transparency, because oftentimes it was the same answer. It's like, we don't know.
An incredible job you guys done on that.
But at least you did provide a way for communication.
That's
right.
true.
I know a lot of people who just ignored.
They went radio silent.
And I know there's nothing worse than when you just want an answer, right?
It's
all you
Truthful
want.
one.
Or you're just getting an auto
one.
reply.
Yeah.
It's like, it's copy and pasted.
Yeah. Now, the timelines at that point in time, pre-COVID, right? Tell me where they were and then where they ended up being.
The lead times. So at the beginning of 2021, our lead times were around 20 weeks, which is still extended. It should be, industry standard at one point was 8 to 12. So we were at 20, and they got up in the mid-30s.
Yeah.
Oof.
Right.
And that's because of all the steel and the gouging and all the above.
No people.
Yeah,
I mean,
People, everything.
yeah.
It was
I
like
think
the perfect storm.
It was the perfect storm. In August, I don't know this for 100% fact, but I would bet a lot of money. Our lead times probably jumped 7 to 8 weeks just losing that month.
Yeah.
Because we were 27
And
people.
we had nobody working.
Nobody was working.
And how long was the factory closed for?
So we shut down for a week.
Yeah, complete
which
week.
Cost a lot to shut down the factory.
So, for example, give the viewers 1 day is equal to what?
I mean, realistically, you're probably looking at between $75,000 to $80,000.
No, I mean, but 1 day is equal to what, a week? Two days is a week in lead time, you think?
We lost 2 to 3 weeks in lead time for shutting down it was 3 or 4 days is what it ended up being.
Wow,
so we lost essentially
A month.
A month.
A
Call it
month.
a month.
A month
yeah.
within a week.
And on top of that, you think about what it costs to close down, but you're still paying.
And you're still paying that bill.
Payroll.
No, it's still coming through.
It was a hard.
Tough.
It was a tough month for everybody in multiple ways, and like I said, it was just a perfect storm. But I don't know, after that, everything, we really had to start taking a look at some things to figure out how to solve this, because the damage had been done essentially at that point. We had to figure out how to recover. So we were in recovery mode. We needed to bring on some really, really strong people to help us through navigate some of these manufacturing complexities. And we put a plan together. We put a support team together for our sales team, our customer care team. They did an absolute amazing job. So did our sales team, like navigating these conversations. I know our customers were frustrated. I read all the comments and all the emails, and I know they were frustrated, but they were still patient. And again, like we have the best customers. Like it is hands down, it is like unbelievable how amazing they are. And, they stuck with us. We didn't have anybody, and we had a couple cancellations, but most people were like, this sucks, but all right.
I think everybody was going through some issues.
Yeah.
during
They're
that
waiting on a
COVID time,
couch
so
or
they-
whatever. I mean,
It wasn't
wasn't like-
just
it was
this
COVID.
industry. I think, which was, a benefit in one regard, that everything was, await.
Everything's jacked. And I think of all times in history, it's probably the best time for it could have happened because people were already experiencing it in every other industry. So it was they were a little more understanding than if that happened in 2018, they're like, lead times went 3 or 4 months later. How?
It's crazy to see how long it's impacted the supply chain, and it's still happening.
Yeah, of course.
Today.
Steel prices are through the roof, especially when we're sourcing steel from the USA, and that's something that the viewers that are watching this, nothing is sourced internationally. There's no Chinese inconsistent steel coming in. Everything is made and manufactured in the USA.
That's right.
Yeah, in Knoxville. So it's, and getting product out has been the hardest it's ever been that I can remember. Getting shipping containers, getting trucks. There's a driver shortage.
Yeah.
There's been a driver shortage for years now, but it's very, very
it's the
apparent
worst.
now.
Trucking is so expensive. It's my biggest headache right now.
I think if you're not in the industry, it's hard to comprehend that. Like, it's hard to understand, like, what do you mean you can't get a container? Like,
or a driver.
Yeah.
Or a chassis.
Yeah.
They might have a container and a driver. Oh, there's no chassis. They bring it to you. So that's the. I just got an email this morning from a poor guy. Shout out to Adam at Powerhouse Gym in Australia. The guy, his order has been done since January. And he finally lined a container up. It just got rolled, meaning
fantastic.
Too congested. Sorry, and it's just like,
negative. My God.
Yeah, it was supposed to get picked up today. So it's just,
it's coming on.
It's a nightmare. The international stuff has been
hard.
extremely difficult. So yeah.
But again, I think what people are hearing here is the story of a real business.
Yeah.
We could have sat here and said, you know what, Arsenal Strength has done this and Arsenal Strength does that, which I do want to talk about.
Yeah.
But there's success and there's failures. But if you haven't learned from your failures and you persevered through, I think that is the success. Everybody in this room has had failures where if it hadn't have been for X, we wouldn't be where we are. We wouldn't have been able to do this. We wouldn't have had this door open. And I think also it's made me a better business owner, athlete by having so much failure. I know the same can be said for Doug, Las Vegas for us, has been a fantastic move. I know it's done me very well in business. It's the same for Doug. And it's also great for Arsenal Strength. It's been a great place for us to showcase the product, the final product. But again, without the failure that has been had, Arsenal Strength wouldn't be where it is today. Wouldn't be the quality it is today. Right. Every lesson that's been learned now has been put into every single piece.
That's right.
And this is where we are today. So with all the failures, the success of the company has been incredible. So before we wrap up, I do want to talk about, we're one of the fastest growing companies in the USA. The fastest company in the space that we're in the gym equipment space. Right. But again, tell the viewers as to, the accomplishment that's being made. Obviously, the story is being told from all the risk to reward and the pitfalls of business failures. But, now the success of the gym being a global brand.
Yeah, I think, and just to your point, Flex, it's if you're not uncomfortable in what you're doing, you're not growing.
Yeah.
And I think that uncomfortable mindset makes you and forces you to grow, and I think growth is a good thing. So like Andrew said, like if you make a mistake, you better be taking notes. And so I think all these trials that we've been through has forced us to grow and mature as business owners, people, husband and wife. And so I'm thankful for all those experiences, as hard as they are, and we're living in it. But I think you take away and learn from that, and then apply it to your next problem, because you're never going to be without problems or a mountain to climb. If you are, then I don't feel like you're maybe moving in the right direction. You may want to think that. But I'm thankful for all those experiences, because they made us and shaped us to who we are today. And I mean, I'll let you talk about kind of where we are, but as a company, I could have never imagined being here. It's almost like we obviously started the company, all of us, but it feels so much bigger than us. Like, it doesn't feel like, I work there and we own it and all of those things, but it's so much bigger than us. It takes on this, it has its own soul and it has its own aura, and it's just its own being, where it's just so much more than us. I'm thankful to be a part of it. I'm thankful that we can utilize this company as a vessel and be a light to people and meet different people and hopefully give them a good experience and everything. But to see where the company has gone and is today, it's honestly incredible.
Well, it's a community. I think that's the biggest thing that you've created. It was your idea, and then you've created a space where a community of people can get together, and
it's a culture.
Yeah,
it is a culture.
Shout out culture.
All of it.
So it is.
Now, as far as, so you want to talk about kind of where we're going?
I want you to talk about whatever you want, my friend.
So, I mean, right now, our biggest focus right now is getting our manufacturing processes dialed into where we are an efficient, our throughput's at the highest level, and we can get our lead times down. There's no better success story, and I hope that in 6 months, or 6 to 12 months, that we can say that we're going to get in a position that we can literally have inventory stock. Because the thing that I've kind of learned, and we've all talked about, is everything we do now currently is built to order, meaning the customer's choosing the color, etc. 2020, people, our generation and the younger generations, they're already impatient. 2020 made them more impatient than even humanly possible. You can imagine. So the thing that I've learned is we need to have product. A lot of people don't care. Like, I want that leg press. We got it in pink. I don't care. I just need a leg press.
Yeah, I want it next week.
That's right. They want it next week. If that's a color option, that's the color I want. So that's kind of our focus, is to go towards more of our heavy hitters, our greatest hits, I would call it. Have that mixtape on hand, one color, ready to go. So that's more of the model we're really going toward. And so with that being said, and that's kind of the vision, the short-term vision, all we've really been focused on, honestly, for the past year, I've been just trying to be a student of manufacturing and to add value where I can to our production manager and that team. And we've recently hired somebody that can truly add a lot of value. I cannot. Like, on a side note, in business, knowing your strengths and knowing where to bow out, like kind of, if I don't know production and I can't add value and help throughput get out, I need to move out of the way and get somebody that can. So being, having enough self-awareness and the confidence to know that is what needs to happen to better the business. That's the mode we're in right now. And we're really trying to assemble a powerful team that can help get our manufacturing really at the perception and the level as our brand is from a marketing and sales standpoint. Because really, there's not a sales number. If somebody said, you got to be at $100 million in sales, it's like that's does not scare me at all. It's just, can you make that happen? Can you ship out $100 million of product?
Is that a goal for the company to scale to a certain number?
That is ultimately, I would love to be at that number. I would love to get to that that figure. But
for people to get it, though, let me ask this, because without sharing numbers, right? So, but for people to get that growth trajectory that you guys went on,
right?
Just use percentages, right? Yeah. To give, instead of actually getting into hard numbers. Like, company started year 1, it does X. Year 2, you guys did X amount of growth. And from year 1 to today, what percentage growth rate?
Oh my gosh, that's really, honestly, you might know.
Yeah, so pretty much in an easy math, we've doubled every year.
Doubled every
so
year.
So 100% growth year over year.
So you've heard the stories of all the pitfalls and all the issues, and we doubled every year.
That's what I think is
it's crazy.
It's
kind
nuts, because that's so hard
insane
to be sustainable and have that growth.
Yeah.
Right. That's what I think. So you can do that math, right? For anyone at home, if you're doubling every single year, that's insane. At least,
right.
That's hard to keep up with.
It is.
I'm still learning the industry and learning and keeping up with all the issues, and then fucking COVID and stuff. So
that's right.
Yeah, great question though, Doug. And
yes,
that's something that I want everybody to know, that obviously the story has been said, but the success that Arsenal had, and humbly saying it, Arsenal is fucking killing it.
We're in a good position.
No, fuck that. Brag.
No,
You know,
seriously.
And
Arsenal,
legitimately, this is. I mean, I'm very proud of what we've done. I
Yeah.
honestly, I'm grateful for where we are. I'm still not satisfied to really say like we've. There's still so many things we have to do better, and there's so like until we really dial in the manufacturing to be where it needs, then I could be like, okay, now we're really we're cooking with oil, as they say. Like that's where we need to be.
Show me a business owner that gets up at 4 o'clock in the morning that is satisfied.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
Right?
That's right.
So,
That's right.
you know, and I know what time you get up because you messaged me. So, you know, again,
very
all on humility being said, you know, Arsenal Strength is on such a great trajectory. Yeah. It's incredible to obviously have our weekly and our monthly calls and hear all the new investment that the company's been doing in people and putting stock into new employment and bringing on some powerful people to take Arsenal into a new direction, as to your point, right, where strengths don't.
That's right.
That your strengths are not now in. So again, you know, I don't want to kind of segue from what you were saying there, but Arsenal is such a fast-growing company, and the growing pains that we've had and all the issues that we've been able to go through is incredible. Again, I'm not there on the day-to-day. I know I'm privy to hearing all the stuff. A lot of tears have been shed between Jamie over the phone and everything else. But, you know, it's an incredible freaking story, guys. An incredible story. So now 2022, where are we right now to this day? And again, what is the grand plan?
So right now is, again, focusing on manufacturing, getting that to where we really, really need to grow. And then we're really kind of focusing on, you know, one thing that is the most important, or one of the most important things to me, is new products.
Yeah.
We've not been able to focus that, you know, people that have kind of followed our journey, they've seen a lot of new products every year. And there's been a halt of new products. There's been a few, but not to the pace. Mm-hmm. So we do have some new products that we're getting ready to launch, and a whole new line that we're going to be launching next year, and that really excites me. That's my favorite part.
I know. I've seen a couple of sneak things.
Yeah, there's some good stuff coming. So
inside scoop.
That's right. That's really where I want to focus is getting our capabilities and throughput to where they need to get, and then that way we can really come out next year swinging with getting this new line out, and just getting lead times down, having inventory, and there's not a better story from getting the lead times where they were to now bringing them back down. As you know, there's still a lot of work to get done to get them where they need to be, but we are seeing a very, they're diminishing every week. They're going down, so we're improving.
They're going down fast.
They are.
Yeah.
So
I'll say this last. Well, I asked this last question. And wrapping up the podcast, it's been a pleasure to talk to you guys. For all the viewers that are out there that have listened to this story of ups and downs and success, and now kind of more privy to the nuts and bolts of who Arsenal Strength is. If somebody was to go out and start a business today, what would be the advice that you give them? You know, obviously there's multiple years that have been done in Arsenal Strength, and I'm kind of talking a little bit for you to think about this, but what advice, maybe as a couple, or maybe advice in business? It's two questions there, because you guys started this company as a married couple, a newly married couple, right. Myself and Ali, same thing. Yeah. You know, there's been some crazy ups and downs, and again, it's brought us closer, if anything, to both of us really trying to execute our goals. I want to see her fulfill her dreams, and the same thing for me. But what would be the advice for all the viewers, first on the business front and as a couple in business together?
So many things that I think I could touch on, but I think the most important thing when starting your business is that you have to believe in it. Like, you have to be the number one fan. You have to be the most passionate. You have to be the most knowledgeable. You have to know what everybody else doesn't know. You have to know what your competitors are doing. You have to know it inside and out. You have to live and breathe and die this company of whatever you're trying to do. If you're not the number one fan, I don't think anybody else can buy into it. That would be from a business standpoint.
Yeah.
That's something Doug always talks about.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to love it,
you
right?
You have to.
You got to bleed it.
Yeah.
That's
right.
You
have to, it has to be inside of you. Like,
yeah.
You just have to know that so well that it's like, oh, well, that makes sense why you're doing that.
Yeah.
Because because you love it and you know it. So I would say from a business standpoint, that would be my advice.
I was going to say something similar, just understanding the industry and knowing your competitors' products, just like if it's a product, service, whatever it is. One of the things I can say that we've talked about before, bring in a very sound, knowledgeable financial person soon as you can. Yeah. You think you can kind of get away with it. And granted, Jamie is a very high level accounting, and she wears way too many hats right now, and a lot of different hats. So without her, this company would not be there. I'd be swinging for the fences with no infrastructure, and it'd be bad. So, but that's one of the things that we could have earlier on brought in a CFO or a financial controller earlier. It really helps. It helps when you are having conversations with your banks or lenders or investors. You've just got to have that. It's got to be tight. So that's the one thing I can say that if we could go back and do, we should have done that a little sooner than we did.
Well, I think too, to add on that is the visibility you get understanding your financials. And so where, Andrew's a visionary, right? So he doesn't really live in those day-to-day numbers, but for somebody who can communicate that to him and say, hey, this is the trajectory, this is where you're headed. Hey, we need to make some changes, or we need to pull back, or we need to, so you really get a good understanding of what's actually happening in your business by looking at the financials. So I think, that's a really good
100%
piece of advice for somebody, is to get some sound financial person in
as far as a relationship. And this is something that I can always improve on. We have this conversation a lot. I've got to get better. I feel that I do a decent job of being as balanced as I can, but I'm much worse than Jamie is. It's hard for me to turn it off.
Same.
It's really hard
with that.
And
it's
I think
pro and
there are pros and cons, but there's Jamie's just really good at being like, you're my husband, not my business partner right now. So take your business hat off, and you're my husband now. Like, and I need that. I need somebody being like, listen, this is enough talk about these leg presses here. Let's talk about the kids and all that. So that's something I think, just having somebody in a relationship, and just it goes back to communication, just knowing, kind of setting boundaries. Okay, like at this, whether it's a time, all right, we're done for the day talking about this, that we can pick it up tomorrow, or realistically, we haven't done this. We've talked about it, but like scheduling actual meetings, just like you have normal. Like if we're going to talk about X, Y, and Z, Thursday at 10 to 12, we're going to hash it out about this topic, and then not have to talk about it at night when we're trying to talk about the kids or whatever's going on.
We can relate.
I'll tell Andrew, I'm like, he'll start talking and just unloading everything, and I'm like, you didn't put this on my calendar. Like, you need to go back, send me your Google invite, and then we'll talk.
Yeah.
Ali likes to tell me stuff just as I'm going to bed.
Partner. Yeah. Sorry. No, that's how you guys know you have the right partner.
That's true.
100%.
That's true.
I mean, it's hard.
It is hard.
Yeah.
If you're obsessed with your business, how do you turn that off, right? That's what you were just saying. You got to live it and breathe it. So like knowing how to like flip that switch is like, that's probably the hardest thing.
I would agree.
Like me, last night, I think I messed you at midnight. I was up at 6. I was like, I couldn't.
You can't turn it off.
Especially if you smoke a little.
That
could be a new sponsor for the podcast, but not right now. But no, with us, again, for me, I kind of have to have this wind down. I peak in the day, and then for me, I don't want to talk about anything business in bed. With her, she'll have a something that comes to brain.
I have an idea, and I was like, I need to get it off.
Right.
And then unfortunately, but then I can go to bed. Then he gets mad at me, and he's like, why'd you tell me this right now? I'm trying to go to bed. And I'm like,
and I'm awake.
It's a great idea. Like,
I'm awake.
Go to bed.
How many times have we messaged about that shit?
Right? I know, it's notorious.
Just
like
turn off.
him and her, they message me at night, and he's like, all right, good night, bro. Oh, she's like, all right, babe, love you, good night. And I'm like, wide awake, because my ADHD is spinning on overdrive, and I'm like, yeah, that's a great idea. What do we do? I execute this tomorrow. And next thing, I'm sitting up wide-eyed in bed. But listen, guys, we could talk for another hour. I know that we haven't even scratched the relationship side of things with us all, but I think one thing I have to say is thank you for bringing so much value to the world that we're all in. You guys are incredible. The fact that, you have this story, you've produced products that are now being trained on by the world's best, not the name drop, but The Rock. is a massive customer of ours who trains on our pieces, who is one of the best spokesperson, like one of the nicest guys in the world too.
Probably one of the best human beings on the planet.
One of the best human beings, and a privilege to see him on our pieces. But again, this has been an idea that started in Tennessee, and I think it's such a, again, not to rehash everything we said, but such a beautiful story. But more than anything else, I'm so privileged to know you two. You bring so much value to myself and Ali's life, not only as partners, but also as family. And I just want to say thank you, again, and thank you from all the customers that I get to hear and then translate that story back. Right. It's very humbling to hear whatever story it is. It truly is. So thank you. Again, it's people like you that have been able to change people's lives. I don't know if you really sat back and thought about this, but, you've been able to, add so much value and purpose, by creating gym equipment. It's been able to now progress people's careers and give them, an extended life in many cases to their, prolonged sport. Right. Like myself, I was able to achieve, so much, through what we've been able to do. And, on behalf of myself and Ali and Doug, thank you for coming in on today's podcast. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, it was awesome.
We love you guys too,
yeah,
man. And go ahead. No. I was just going to say really quick, just thank you for believing, and not just me, but just in the idea and the concept before we had products, and knowing that it could happen. And then also willing to, back in 2015, putting your name on something that could have went real bad. I mean, realistically, it could. There's a lot of equipment companies out there that don't survive. It could have went really, really south, and that is exactly what a new brand, a new company needed. Somebody with legitimacy and some clout that's already a leader in the industry. So thank you guys for just believing in us and being there and watching this thing happen. So very grateful.
And I believe it's just, a chapter of many more to come.
100%.
I think in a few years' time, this company was going on to evolve into whatever direction, it goes into next. And I will say it's very exciting to be not only part of it, but also as a fan, seeing what it's achieved already and the direction it will be going. So thank you guys.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you guys. I can't wait to see the pieces for Carbon Performance. I saw the teaser. They're badass.
Yeah, that's going to be a badass, Jim. Shout out to you guys over there.
Shout out Brent Laffey, Victoria.
All the crew.
Yeah. It's going to be cool.
Awesome.
It's a brand new color. Never been done.
So stay tuned, guys. Look for that.
Stay tuned. Franklin, Tennessee. Just coincidentally, the first business I ever opened up.
That's right.
Flex and
That's
Shake.
right. Flex and Shake.
Everything happens for a reason.
Isn't that
and
crazy?
It's just amazing how all these pieces tie themselves in.
Yeah.
That is so true.
All right, guys. Episode 11. Thanks for joining. Out.
See ya.